Hello, it's time for another bonus episode of all of the Street Fighters. I've done one bonus episode before, and what these bonus episodes are meant to do is look at games that aren't strictly Street Fighter games, but they've got a connection to them. So we've looked at Tekken 7 before, and the connection there was that it featured Akuma as a main character on the roster. He wasn't a bonus character, he wasn't a secret character. He was actually a big part of the story mode in the game, and he was integrated into the game just brilliantly. And I think it was worth a look at. And yeah, it's just like a little spin-off thing. So today we're going to look at Rival Schools United by Fate, which is the PlayStation release of Rival Schools. Rival Schools came out in arcades in 1997 and was released on the PlayStation in 1998. And unlike Tekken 7, this is a Capcom fighter. So this is made by the developers of Street Fighter. So it's very similar to Street Fighter. It's a 2D fighting game with 3D visuals. I would describe the style as kind of a cross between Street Fighter EX plus Alpha, which, if you remember, that's the 3D Street Fighter, with something like Marvel vs. Capcom. And the reason it feels like Marvel vs. Capcom is two reasons. One, it's got a tag mechanic, so you choose two characters and you can tag in. And number two, it's that traditionally Street Fighter games are 6-button fighters, so you've got 3 punch buttons and 3 kick buttons. Now Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which we haven't looked at yet, but that's the next Street Fighter game we're looking at, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 reduced the buttons down to 4 buttons, so 2 punches and 2 kicks. And Rival Schools mirrors that. So you've got a light punch, a heavy punch, a light kick and a heavy kick. And then you can do various other moves by pressing like punch and kick together, but we'll get to that. So apart from the Capcom connection and the fact that it plays fairly similar to Street Fighter games, what's the link to Street Fighter? Well, similar to Tekken 7, there's a Street Fighter character in Rival Schools. Sakura is just a main character in Rival Schools, and she fits in the roster absolutely perfectly. To describe what Rival Schools is a fighting game that's set in a school, or in various schools. So it's all the characters are pupils and teachers at the school. The storyline is that pupils from various schools in this prefecture are going missing or turned up hurt, and all these school kids and teachers get together to try and investigate and find out why. And the game's actually very story heavy. One of the cool things about the game is that it's got a really solid story, and all the characters have got a purpose in that story. And yeah, Sakura is just one of the main characters in the game. And you'll know Sakura from Street Fighter Alpha and various other the Marvel games. She's a very mainline Street Fighter character, and it's always cool to see her in another game, and especially one where she's so well integrated. So I did say that Rival Schools has got a tag mechanic, and while that's true, it's not really the same as the other Capcom Versus games. So traditionally in Versus games, you'll pick 2 characters or sometimes 3 characters, and you can tag in and out, so you can swap characters on the fly. You know, if you pick Ryu, M. Bison and Mega Man in a Capcom Marvel vs. Capcom game, you can switch between them, and you can call in one for an attack, or you can swap out. Rival Schools doesn't really work like that. You do pick 2 characters, so every match has got 4 characters in it, but you can't swap. Your second character only plays the part of somebody who you can do like these kind of special moves where you use them. So you're not even calling them in for an attack, really. You're just doing a super move, and you're doing it with your other character. And every character's got a different like animation and a different move. Some of them are just like really powerful attacks, and some of them are heals. So some of the characters, mainly the female characters, they'll come in and like massage you, and it'll heal you. So they're not all attacks, but they're like assists as well. What's quite nice that you don't often see in these versus games is in between the rounds, it gives you the option of swapping out your character. So you pick your 2 characters at the beginning and you win your first round as Sakura, for example, and then the game will ask, do you want to swap to the other character for the next round, or do you want to stay as Sakura? And that's quite a nice little option that you've got to switch it up. The first character you choose will be classed as your main character, but yeah, you can switch in between rounds, whether you've won or whether you've lost. I'm just generally in love with this game. I always have been. I think it's just an absolute triumph of character roster and art style and story and just like the general vibe of it. Like the the kind of idea that it's all school pupils and teachers. It just works so well. And all the backgrounds kind of tie into that, and all the characters' stories tie into it. And it's got this cool FMV intro that's like super anime with a proper anime theme, and I just love it. I think it's so well realised. I could totally see Rival Schools having other Street Fighter cameos. I mean, they're not even cameos, are they? I feel wrong saying that. Sakura's a proper character in it, and she's a main part of the story. But I could definitely see this having like Makoto or Dan or characters like that if they made more Rival Schools. I kind of wish they did. There's a sequel. There's Rival Schools 2, and then there's another game called Project Justice, which I don't really know a lot about. I should investigate that. But they've stopped making them. You know, they're not a mainstream fighting game in 2018. So I'd hugely recommend Rival Schools. If you can get access to the version on the PlayStation, it's absolutely fully recommended. If you've got any interest in Capcom fighters, in the Street Fighter games or the Versus games, I think you'll love Rival Schools. I think it's super cool. And that's just a quick look at the game, really. I think it is intrinsically linked with Street Fighter games, so it's worth looking at as part of the series. But it's not a Street Fighter game. Although weirdly, it's only got one less Street Fighter character than... No, that's wrong. Let me start again. It's only got one less original Street Fighter character than Street Fighter 3 did. If you can imagine Street Fighter 3 releasing, that had Ryu and Ken, and then the other 7 characters in the game were all brand new, just made for that game. Rival Schools has only got one less than that. It's got Sakura, but it still doesn't count as a Street Fighter game. If this was called like Street Fighter School, it totally would be, but that's the stupidness of like series and naming conventions, isn't it? Like, it's not a Street Fighter game, but maybe if it was called Rival Schools Street Fighter School, it totally would be. But anyway, that's by the by. It's an amazing game. It's a brilliant fighter. It's an amazing Capcom fighter. And as I say, if you've got any interest in Street Fighter games, I think you'll love Rival Schools. So try and check it out. As always, thank you for joining us, or thank you for joining me. I would say us. It's me, isn't it? Thank you for joining me for all of the Street Fighters. Next time we're looking at Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is it's one of the best Street Fighter games. I absolutely love it. And I think I've worked out how I can capture it without getting my Dreamcast out. So yeah, that's good. And I'll see you then. All right, bye.